I'm so excited to be here with you today. My name is Alexandria Snow. Please do call me Snow. I'm Solution Marketing Director here at G2, and I'm joined by the wonderful Emily. Emily, go ahead and give yourself a quick introduction.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Emily Tidyman. I am a Enterprise Customer Success Manager here at G2.
Excellent. And today we are here to talk about how you can turn your profile into a demand driver. So let's go ahead and go over our agenda. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over why your profile matters, the elements of the G2 profile. The real meat of what we're talking about is how you can get found, keep attention, and drive action on those profiles, and what you can do today to really start getting that traction in the market. We'll, of course, as always, save time at the end of this for the Q&A. I know a couple of you have already found the chat, but just some general housekeeping. On the right-hand side, you'll see your chat tab. There's also a Q&A tab. So if you have any questions that you would like for us to answer during our Q&A session, please go ahead and put them in that Q&A tab. Don't worry, if you put them in chat, we're also going to be monitoring the chat and we can pop them in there for you as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into what you can do, whether you are an unclaimed, free, paid, to optimize your profile. Before we get too far into it, we'd love to know, what type of profile do you currently have? Is it unclaimed? Is it free? Is it paid? Is it a combination? Do you have some paid, some free? So just let us know in the chat. We'd love to see. Excellent. Well, we've already got some answers. I was a little worried I was going to have to Bueller everyone, but I'm glad to see that everyone's been able to find the chat. So let's go ahead and really dive into the meat of our content. Why do you care about your G2 profile? And the reality is buyers are already looking at your profile on G2. We have over 100 million buyers every year visiting G2, and 90% of buyers are either going to start or land on G2 at some point during their research process. So it's really, really critical that you understand how you're showing up for those customers so that you drive the best chance to be put into consideration for a buying cycle. And it's not just about how you show up on your profile, but it's also how you show up outside in the real world. And this is where we'll talk a little bit about LLMs, large language models, or generative AI. 89% of buyers are using generative AI in at least one area of their purchasing process, and 9 in 10 buyers have adopted generative AI, with adoption set to grow even further. So we're already at 90%. And if you think about it, 90% of those buyers who have used generative AI in a buying process of 100 million or more, they're reporting positive outcomes. So people are using LLMs. Now, why am I talking about LLMs right now when we're talking about profiles? Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is where I'm very pleased to share that G2 is a #1 source for LLM when it comes to software comparisons, beating out all other software marketplaces. This is sourced from Profound, and it's an exciting stat that we're excited about. And how can you make sure that you're showing up in these LLM searches? Well, that's where your profile and driving reviews really come in. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So generally, when you're looking at your profile, there's only 5% of buyers in market at any given time. And if you're on free or unclaimed profile, you're going to have more difficulty being seen. However, with your upgraded profile, you have more meat to your profile and typically are driving more reviews. And so it's going to increase your chances of being seen. Now, again, if you're in free or unclaimed, the best thing you can do is optimize your profile to its fullest extent and drive as many reviews as you can on a regular basis. So don't worry, there's still things that you can do to make sure you're showing up well. So let's talk about that now. If we go to the next slide for the elements of the G2 profile, and we'll just keep on keeping on and talk about that G2 profile anatomy. When you're thinking about your profile, whether you're in free or unpaid, or if you're in paid, it's important to remember that every section is going to play a role in building that trust with your buyers and guiding them through to hopefully a conversion. A complete profile is going to perform better in search overall in both the grid and in generative AI. So at the very least, you want to fill it out to your most complete ability, and you want to go back and ensure you're keeping it up to date on a quarterly basis. Upgraded profiles do unlock additional key features such as banners, lead forms, additional rich content that can keep your buyers engaged for longer. And so it's a real plus there when you're looking at that. Let's talk about what parts of the profile you own versus your customers and G2. So you're going to own all of your branding elements. You're going to own your logo, your banner, any integrations that you have indicated if you're in paid, media library, G2 badge, your CTAs, etc. If your customers, though, they're going to own their recent reviews. And from their reviews, there's an AI algorithm that's going to be pulling pros and cons and the overall review sentiment. So you don't have much control over that other than continually reaching out and finding your best advocates to leave reviews. G2 then owns your alternatives, the categories you belong to, and your comparisons. But you can, of course, work with G2 to impact those categories as you need. If we think about this a little bit further, that's a lot. What's in a free profile? Like, what's the real kind of difference? So let's go to the next slide. With your free profile, here you'll see a picture of the free profile on the right that's been anonymized. You have you don't have the ability to brand it at the top. You're just going to have kind of a standard banner at the top, but you are able to add in your logo. However, any badges that have been earned will not be visible on this page. In addition, you're going to have alternatives a little higher up in the page, and you're not going to have the ability to add a URL or a CTA. You are able to add your product profile, and that's a key component of ensuring that it's fully filled out and up to date so that you're showing up as best as you possibly can. Let's go ahead and talk about some new features that we're going to be highlighting over the next couple of minutes. And the first one, I already kind of mentioned it, is integration lists. So we've launched integration lists to help your buyers see exactly how your product is going to fit into their tech stack from G2. And we find that 82% of buyers say that integrations are essential when making buying decisions. And this update brings that to their fingertips. Now, it's important to note that with the free profile, integrations will still display, but they're going to be pulled from your reviews. That's not something that you can control. The only thing that you can really do is when you're reaching out to individuals to source those reviews is to ask them to include what integrations they may have set up. But don't worry, I'm really excited about this. I'm actually going to bring Emily on briefly, and she's going to demo how you can configure these integration lists yourself. Emily?
Awesome. Thank you, Snow. So directly within your My.G2, in the left-hand panel, we now have an integration section that's brand new. And this is where for those upgraded or paid profiles, you can manually add in new integrations here to, again, display directly on your profile.
Excellent. Thank you. So again, it's right there in My G2, ready for you to update it. We do recommend that you, again, this is an area to check quarterly to ensure if you have new integrations, they're always visible and fully up to date on those paid profiles. Let's go to the next slide and let's talk about features. So this is another area that you really want to make sure that you're keeping up to date. You can select product features for your solution inside My G2. And what this helps do is it ensures that reviewers are prompted to only rate the functionality that applies directly to them. This leads to more accurate and meaningful reviews and gives you more insight into the features that they're talking about to better understand their overall sentiment and how the solution is performing for them. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is something that I personally, as a marketer, am very excited about. Let's go to the next slide. And that's going to be this changes to our skin, if you will. So we have designed a new interface for G2 that's going to be coming soon, that's going to build more confidence in G2 profiles while empowering sellers with the tools they need to capture demand. This reskin helps buyers very quickly find the information they need to make more confident decisions and reach out when ready. And it's all with this real modern, enterprise-ready view. It's really pretty. We're expecting this update to come around May or June, so stay tuned and we'll keep you guys informed of everything that's going on there. Now, we're going to talk next about how you can turn your profile into a demand driver, and I'm going to hand it off to Emily because she's the real subject matter expert here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Snow. So now we've chatted about all of the ways that we can capture the attention of in-market buyers shopping for solutions like yours. So now I want to focus our attention on how we can convert those same buyers using your G2 profile. So when it comes to your G2 profile, we have three key areas to focus on to ensure that your profile is set up to be a demand driving tool. That first area is going to be optimizing your profile to the fullest extent. So it tells a really rich and compelling story of your product or solution. To do so, we can fill out our product descriptions, optimize with AI, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself there. But ultimately, the goal is to have your G2 profile be an extension of your website and of your overall go-to-market strategy. The second area is going to be the specific tools within your G2 profile that help capture the demand of those in-market buyers researching you in real time. Some of those tools include a customizable call to action button that displays on the top right section of your G2 profile, as well as the ability to capture leads. I do want to mention that these demand generation features are specific to upgraded profiles only, along with the third key area of focus, which is adding compelling content like videos and downloadables, case studies, product tours. This third capability is a great way to not only grab the attention of buyers, but also hold their attention and allow them to deeply consider your solution. Ultimately, here at G2, we want to help your solution be found. And we have found that upgraded G2 profiles tend to see 17 times more organic traffic as a whole. And some ways that we can help you be discovered are ensuring that you are in the right category. So we have a slew of categories here at G2, over 2,100, and we want to ensure that your product is accurately listed and represented across those categories that meets your features and functionality. It is completely free to be added to any new category on G2. However, you must meet the inclusion criteria in order to be added. Secondly, we want to ensure that your profile is optimized for SEO, meaning every page on G2 is indexed by Google. So ensuring that your product descriptions are filled out using key AdWords helps to ensure that your profile is appearing higher and higher in those organic searches. And then lastly, once you are found, we want to ensure that you're standing out with your logo image, banner image, latest badges are displayed, all these great things to ensure that buyers know that they're at the right place. Once you are discovered, we want to hold these buyers' attention. We have found that upgraded G2 profiles tend to see a 2,000% increase of profile engagement. So that's more time on page and more time that these buyers are evaluating your solution to see if it makes sense to move to the next step. The way to hold their attention is unlocking all of these amazing features that allow you to tell your story, whether it's with product tours, video demos, client interviews, case studies. Your G2 profile is the go-to-market extension to ensure all of your latest branded content has a place to live. Another cool feature of G2 profiles are the discussions feature. So this allows buyers and reviewers alike to ask questions about your product, tool, or service directly on your G2 profile, and it gives you the opportunity to transparently respond to those questions, allowing buyers to learn more about your solution. I do want to mention that going back to kind of the discrepancies between upgraded and non-upgraded profiles, the upgraded profiles allow you to upload the videos, case studies, white papers, research studies, etc. So I just wanted to be clear there. Now that we have their attention, we want to drive action, or in other words, we want to drive conversions. And to do so with those upgraded G2 profiles, my number one recommendation is adding that custom call to action button. As I mentioned, this is a button that displays on the top right section of your G2 profile, and this can be redirected to the lead form of your choice. So whether your solution offers a free demo, a free trial, talk to sales, whatever landing page makes the most sense, we want to ensure that we can redirect those buyers to the page of your choice. We also have the ability to capture leads directly from your G2 profile. And using our webhooks, we can then funnel those leads directly into your CRM. And then lastly, we do have a fabulous tracking pixel called Track Your Prospects that allows us to see the bounce back and forth between visitors that are maybe starting on your G2 profile and then redirecting to your website, or those that start on your website and then bounce to G2. This pixel allows us to transparently see how G2 increases organic traffic to your profile, or to your website, I should say, with time. And then lastly, overall, I want you to think of your G2 profile as an always on go to market asset that buyers can reference as they make their way down the sales funnel. So, starting with the awareness stage, your G2 profile helps you become discovered. We've already mentioned that G2 is the number one source for generative AI tools. So, whether these buyers are using ChatGPT, organic Google search, AWS, or even doing research on G2.com, ensuring that you have a G2 profile helps you increases your likelihood to be discovered in all of those different channels. Once they land on your profile, we want to help your buyers consider your solution. And in order to do so, we want to take advantage of all of those customization and marketing content features that gives your buyers the insights on how your solution works and how your solution compares to other products that they're considering on their shortlist. Once they determine that your solution is a good fit for them, you can then drive conversions directly from your G2 profile, whether they're redirected to a lead form or their information is captured directly on G2. We can close the loop on these active buyers that are ready to move forward in the sales cycle. And then even after we close these deals, your G2 profile is a fabulous tool to use in renewal and expansion conversations. Not only can you gather reviews from your existing clientele to improve your product and use those sentiments for constant growth and evolution, you can also use those testimonials in renewal and expansion conversations to help improve those conversations down the line. And then lastly, I do want to highlight this recently published case study that we worked with Insider. So the last 3 years, Insider's profile has seen over 145,000 views. Of those views, we've seen over 5,300 redirects from their custom CTA, as well as 6,500 website referrals in total. This is a really fabulous example of how your G2 profile is allowing improving the chances that you're getting discovered, as well as converting on those buyers that are, again, in market and ready to purchase. And then the last thing I want to mention is for all of my folks in the chat that have multi-products, we now have, we've recently upgraded our seller pages here at G2, which these pages are a way for your company to showcase all of your products and services in one singular view. We've also added some new filters so buyers can filter through your entire product suite by star rating, by category, review recency. So it's a really great way to holistically showcase your entire product line at the company level. Awesome. I'm now going to pass it back to Snow to chat about how we can amplify your social proof using G2.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Emily. And I love the seller pages or the portfolio pages, however you think of them. They're just a great tool, I think, to really showcase that entire suite at once. So I love seeing it. So I'm real excited to talk to you about this particular topic. Not only am I the solution marketing director here at G2, but I am also a former customer. And I can confidently say that when I was a customer of G2, every deal that closed at my company had a G2 touchpoint in some way. When you think about customer voice, my old demand gen leader used to tell me it's the loudest in the market. It's the thing that helps separate you out from the crowd and really demonstrate value in a way that buyers care. And so social proof is critical, in my opinion, not only to your marketing strategy, but also to your sales strategy. So let's take a little bit and unpack that. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So here, the first thing you need to do is you need to capture that voice of the customer. You need to be able to capture your best advocates. You want to run review campaigns via G2. We can run them, or you can run them on your own. And you can even automate review collection with in-app levers. In a little bit, we're actually going to look at what a best-in-class review strategy can look like. But in general, it's important to remember that upgraded profiles do receive more reviews because of their completeness, and especially organic reviews, it inspires more of a desire to leave more content. And the more reviews you have, the more complete your overall profile appears, and the more value you can deliver to your customers to drive that consideration phase that Emily was talking about. Once you have those reviews coming in, one thing that I always enjoyed doing, and I say enjoyed, but I really did. I was a product marketer at the time, and your reviews coming in, not only do you need to be watching them come in so you can respond appropriately, but there's such a wealth of information available inside each one of your reviews. You can really quickly tap into real buyer sentiment to understand what's going on with your users and share that with your internal teams. But it also helps you identify product strengths, messaging gaps, and competitive insights. If every single one of your reviews is talking about what a joy it is to be implemented or how good your support team is, that's an opportunity to run a campaign directly addressing something that your buyers care enough about. They're talking about it in your reviews. You then want to activate that voice of the customer, and you want to activate it everywhere. So this is, again, what I used to do when I was a customer. You can repurpose reviews in decks, ads, social, sales enablement, everything, create talking points. And here's where I'll take a quick pause to say there is power in middling reviews. If every review you have is 5 stars, congratulations, that's great. But a lot of times buyers are not going to care as much about those 5-star reviews. Think about yourself. When you're looking at reviews for something you're buying, even if it's on Amazon, you often go down and you reorder the reviews to see the worst reviews first. You want to know what those people are saying. So it's critical you know what they are saying. And if there's a good quote in one, don't be afraid to use it. Because sometimes, even if it's a 3-star review, if they're complimenting you on a specific task, that is gold, because it shows that you're not afraid of those smaller ones and you know that there's room for improvement. So don't be afraid of those middling reviews. And again, make sure you turn that trust into action with proof points that convert. So this should be directly impacting your messaging. When you're building messaging and you're building ads, if you can pull directly from customer voice, you're really setting yourself up for success. So let's take a minute and let's look at what that can look like. So I know this is a bit of an eye chart. We're going to blow it up a little bit bigger for you all right now. But this is what I used to do when I was a customer. So first, the bar across the top, that teal color, that is automated in-app reviews. So inside our solution, we had it turned on so that at any time there could be a prompt prompting someone to leave a review. And again, don't be afraid of negative reviews. You want to collect as many as possible because you'll be watching them come in and they give you a chance to grow. Then beneath that is this yellow pill. In this example, we had a yearly conference where we would have a review booth. And sometimes if we didn't have a review booth, or maybe we were doing a digital conference, you can always pop up a QR code so that your customers can leave reviews at that time. So we had a yearly event. We made sure we collected reviews at that event. Then we worked closely with our sales team. One thing that when I was doing this that was really important is even a 5-star review that's stellar and filled out entirely, it might not be the 5-star review from the person that you want. You often want to get a quote from a leader. And one way that you can do that is by connecting with your sales team to drive reviews directly after implementation. You have your point of contact who you've been working with throughout the sales cycle. They've just gone through an implementation with you, and they're still primed and thinking about you in a good way. And that is a great time to ask for a review. So timing that and running a sales competition is a great way in order to incentivize those higher level reviews. Then we have the 2 pills below. So it's this blue color and this kind of salmon pinkish color. That is timed quarterly review campaigns that are directly leading into a report cycle. And we have a report cycle coming up. We're going to talk about that in a minute as well. So you want to make sure you're running those quarterly campaigns right before each time a report cycle happens, because you want to show up as best you possibly can in that review cycle. And it's important to think that if you can only do one of these things, the quarterly one is probably the one that I would recommend, because it's better to have a continual thread of reviews to keep your reviews recent and relevant than doing all your reviews at the beginning of the year and walking away. Usually people are going to find the most value in a review that's only a couple of months old, because things can change very quickly. So again, those quarterly review campaigns are where the real power lie. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Now, once you've got those reviews, it's important to note that they're not just going to exist on G2. We have a powerful review syndication network across leading partner marketplaces, which is going to extend your reach to millions of buyers each month. So whether they're searching for software on SAP or Rippling or ADP, your reviews are going to show up. And this is true for paid and unpaid. So making sure that you're driving as many reviews as possible and your profile is fully complete, because it's going to drive that traffic to your profile, is critical when you're thinking about the consideration phase. If they view you on one of these and they click onto your profile, that is a very hot signal. And you want them to reach out to you. And the best thing you can do is have that complete profile so that when they land, they can get the information and self-serve accordingly. Let's go ahead and talk about badges next. So you've driven reviews, you've done a great job. Now you've earned a badge. So with this, G2 badges are a great way to quickly share your overall strengths and validation with buyers at a glance. They are a value add coming soon. So here's something we're going to talk about real quick. You may have seen our summer report deadline email go out yesterday. Just a reminder, you want to run all those reviews in by May 24th in order to impact this report season. In those comms, you may have read that going forward, report badges are now a value add for upgraded profiles. If you're on free, don't worry, you're still going to get the user/client love us badge for free and access to any of your previously earned badges. You're also still eligible for grid placement and report inclusion. So making sure you're running those quarterly reports, again, whether or not you're in free or paid profile, is critical to show up at your best. When you have your badges and you have access to them, I love to add them to your forms. And I even mean the form that you're clicking over to your CTA. So we mentioned you can add a CTA to your paid profile. Once they click that, you want to continue the thread to show customer validation and trust. And the best way to do that at a glance is including your badges on that form. So I always love not only including badges in your email signatures or in ads, but also on all of your forms that they're filling out to once again quickly demonstrate how you are better than your competitors. Let's go ahead and keep on clicking on. So if you think about the overall journey that you have with G2, what we've talked about today with optimizing your profile and running reviews, you're really living in the build trust and reputation and making the shortlist. So build trust and reputation, that's at that awareness stage. Making the shortlist is driving consideration, and hopefully, especially if you have a paid, them clicking through in order to fill out and convert into a lead. So that's where we've been living today. We're not done yet, though. We're actually now going to talk about quick wins for every profile tier, and I'm going to hand it back off to Emily for this talk.
Awesome. Thank you, Snow. I'm hoping that everyone here in the chat can walk away with some quick things to take advantage of before we end today's webinar. So for starters, we want to ensure that your profile is on G2. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already, searching your company name plus G2 into Google or searching directly on g2.com to ensure that your profile is listed. From there, if you find your profile, but you see that it has a big unclaimed next to it, go ahead and click on that and fill in a claim request. These requests typically take between 24 and 48 hours to be approved. Once you're approved, you're free to unlock all of the free features, such as updating your product descriptions, adding a logo, and filling out your features. I also want to mention that if you search for your company or your product and you don't see it listed on G2, it is completely free of charge to have a profile listing on G2. Erin is including a link in our chat of where you can submit those new profile requests if necessary. Now that we have your profile, I want to talk a little bit more on some of those free features to take advantage of. Number one is when you're filling out your product description, we have this awesome optimized for SEO feature that helps generative text that tends to perform better in organic search. So really great tool to take advantage of as you're filling out your product descriptions. We also recommend adding in your pricing. This is something we haven't chatted about yet. This is completely available for our free customers. And we found that profiles that have pricing information transparently listed tend to convert at a rate of 2.6 times more compared to those that don't have pricing. Now, I understand that not all products have pricing transparently, even visible on your website. But you can even create different modules that showcase different packages that your product offers and do what I like to call an open table style, where instead you can do maybe small business, mid-market enterprise, or dollar signs, $1, $2, $3 signs to kind of indicate the investment. Last but certainly not least, now that we have your profile up and running, we want to start driving reviews. It is completely free to start driving reviews to your free listing on G2. Pro tip, every profile on G2 has a write a review CTA. I recommend grabbing that link and sharing it to your customers. And doing this frequently and often. As we know, these reviews can be used in social and sales and marketing collateral, and even in those renewal and expansion conversations. More importantly, when it comes to reviews, you only need 10 reviews to be included in your different category grid reports. Once you hit that 10 review mark, you are included in those reports perpetually. However, as you gather more reviews, you're then able to improve your ranking over time. Now, for all of my paid folks in the chat, these are some reminders to take advantage of today. If you haven't already, turn on your custom call to action button. I did this with a customer yesterday. They have 5 different profiles. None of them were turned on. And we did it live on the call. I highly recommend getting this feature turned on. As I mentioned, it's a little button where you can customize the text and redirect folks to the landing page of your choice. Again, commonly we see this being used to solicit your free trial or a free demo, but I've also seen clients use it to solicit upcoming events, to boost registration, things like that. It's completely yours to take advantage of, and you can adjust it as many times as needed. Also, for my paid folks, we can have that really compelling, captivating banner image. Pro tip, that image can also be a GIF or a video. So a really fun way to tell your product story and highlight all of those branding materials that I know your content team is working hard on. And then last but not least, I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of us live in Slack these days. Slack is one of our many integrations that I highly recommend turning on, where you can quickly be notified anytime your profile has a new review or buyer intent signal, which we're not going to go into too much today on today's call. But again, for my intent customers in the chat, really awesome way to receive and stay on top of those intent signals. And that concludes the PowerPoint or the slides that we had prepared for today. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can now pivot over to our Q&A.
Excellent. I know we've got a couple of questions that have already been coming in, and we are going to do our best to answer each one to the fullest ability that we can on today's call. So we'll go ahead and share this first one. Is there a recommended number of reviews to get per month to keep your profile relevant? I know I have an opinion, but Emily, what do you say?
I love this question. I get this quite often, and the answer is it depends. So what I mean by that is I highly recommend, there's a competitor section within my.g2 that allows you to see where you currently rank in all of your different category grid reports, as well as your competitors. And in addition to your ranking, as well as your scores, you can also see review trends amongst your competitors for the last 6 months. I highly recommend referencing that to kind of have an understanding and an idea of, what is the total amount of reviews that your competitors have in a certain category? How many reviews have they gathered in the last 6 months? And then from there, you can kind of piece together how many net new reviews you should aim for on a quarterly or monthly basis. Broad stroke, I say 25 new reviews a month is an awesome goal to set. I've worked with customers where they want 200 reviews a month and others where 20 reviews was a huge win. We service a lot of different customers that have a lot of different types of clients. So again, I think it depends, but I highly recommend using that competitor analytics section to kind of piece those numbers together.
No, I love that. And I remember that these days, 25 is a great goal to have. I always thought the floor for me, it's like if I was giving myself the lowest possible that I could run, 10 reviews at the very least to ensure that you're showing up where you want in the grid, right? But no, Emily, that's great. And always making sure, to your point, that you're running it based on what your competitors are doing. Another great call out. We've got a handful of questions. Let me go ahead and stop this one. And let's do, so real quick, we have a demo question here. Can you show the place where to set up the call to actions in my G2? Emily, is that possible? Could you real quickly show that?
I would love to. Let me know if we can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. So to add that custom call to action button, that's going to live under the buyer activity section on the left-hand side. And then we're going to go all the way to the bottom under the CTA settings here. From here, this is where you can add in your custom CTA. You would drop in the URL here. I don't think I mentioned this on today's call, but I highly recommend adding UTM parameters to this hyperlink. That way, as leads come through, you can have that source by G2 attribution put in place. And then you would enter in that custom text here. And just to have an idea of where this lives on the front-facing profile, we can see that we have it linked to our contact support. So again, another great example of how you can use this link in a different way other than gathering leads.
I love that. And before you stop sharing, could you also go ahead and point people to where they can see that competitive comparison to finish out the earlier questions?
Absolutely. So this is going to live under the analytics section and then under competitors. So here we can quickly see where G2 ranks in the buyer intent data providers category. I recommend using this dropdown to kind of click through your product's different categories to understand where we rank in each. And then as we scroll down, these are the review trends. So really great way to see how your product compares to the amount of reviews your competitors are gathering in the last 6 months.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So we'll do this one real quick. Sorry, there's just so many in here to scrum through. And I'm unsure of what the actual answer here is, but do you happen to know what percentage of users paid, free, or both provide pricing or not? This one is, Emily, I don't know if you've got more insight into this.
Well, I don't have a specific percentage I can give you. What I do know is I've worked with a lot of customers where their pricing is almost bespoke, where they need to speak to sales to have that pricing. It's not transparently shared. And even in those circumstances, we were able to find a way to add pricing details to their G2 profile that allows them to still provide some information, but not obviously disclosing all the details. So if Nicole, if that kind of is where you're at, I highly recommend getting creative there with maybe showcasing the different investment tiers. And more importantly, there is a CTA within that section as well. But the last thing I want to mention is the importance of adding details there is we now have, for my buyer intent customers on the call, there's a new intent signal that is focused just on your pricing views. Very strong bottom of the funnel signal indicator. So again, highly recommend adding in some form of information so those bottom of the funnel buyers have something to consider and look at.
Yeah, and I can double down on that, Emily. I was in that boat when I was a customer. We did not share our pricing publicly. It was partly because right sizing the deal for each individual customer was a critical part of our sales process. And so we still added the kind of starter packages to G2 and then used the contact us call to action instead of sharing the actual pricing, because again, it varied. We did pricing varied so dramatically based on the size of the company, the specific feature set they were looking at, and the additional customization. So it's not unusual. And that's part of the reason why it's hard to give an answer to this question on what percentage, because we could tell you how many of our customers have set up some sort of pricing capability, but knowing whether or not they're actually sharing their pricing or not is more obfuscated. All right. So we have another question here. Can you also show us where to find? Oh, this is another demo question, Emily. So I love the tacticalness here. So can you show us real quick the integrations tab?
Absolutely. I was actually looking at, I know we're moving on, but really quickly, I think even our G2 profile does a really great example of kind of showing the different investments without transparently showing the pricing. And then, of course, you can have a customizable CTA that you can turn on under the pricing section in my.G2 to, again, collect additional information there. But I digress. The integration section is going to be on that left-hand side menu, the integration hub, that first section there. This is going to display all of our partners that we currently work with. And depending on, like, I know we were chatting about Slack today. If Slack is something we want to get up and running, you would essentially find that integration tile. And then this is where we have an implementation overview, and all of the details are down below for each integration.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Emily. I know we're busting through so many of these questions. As always, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to continue. One other question that we have here: what is the best way to move up into the top 10 category list? I think this is probably one of the biggest questions we get on a regular basis. Emily, what are your thoughts?
Tristan, I don't know if you're going to like it, but the answer is reviews. It's gathering more reviews, it's review recency, it's review volume, and it's also some market presence data points as well. But those market present data points that we consider in our G2 grid reports are a little bit harder to manipulate because we're looking at the year your company was founded, website traffic, number of employees, things like that. But when it comes to what we can control when it comes to G2 is we value, again, recent reviews. And I always like to remind my customers, 10 good reviews is going to do more for your category ranking than 5 great reviews. So do that with what you will. But our algorithm is a little nuanced. We can't share everything. We don't even know everything because we want to prevent gamification. But nonetheless, gathering more reviews and prioritizing a really strong review generation engine is going to be the best way to improve your ranking.
Excellent. Love that. We've got a couple more now that we're going to be adding in, and I'll go ahead and share this one that was added to the Q&A here. What types of content have you seen make the biggest difference in keeping buyers engaged on a G2 profile?
I love this question. So I would say we have a newer feature. It's been live for over a year at least. It's our product demos. So unsure if your product or if your company uses any interactive demo tools like Toriel, Reprise, Storylane, but you can upload these interactive demos onto your G2 profile, So that really allows buyers to fully understand what it is like to use your product. And I think it does that in a really captivating way.
Yeah, I agree. I love the interactive demos. You know, another way that I always find that it's good is it does help if you have a very nuanced product. If you have, for example, a tech booklet or a deep dive into one of your specific features in ebook, those are often good ones to have as well. It's really about answering those questions that your buyers have on a regular basis. So something that regularly is used during the sales cycle, you could sometimes get ahead of those questions by including it on your profile as well as downloadable content. We'll keep on going. So we have this one here. I really like the customized URL to share security information. Is this something you can do through a custom CTA? I think I know the answer to this question, but Emily, I always love to hear you go first.
I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, the answer is yes. Snow, I
Yeah.
think I might have you take this because I feel like I might be missing.
No, you and I'm aligned. So I do believe, yes, you can. So in your CTA, when you do your custom CTA link, you can actually link to anything. So there's a couple of questions when you're thinking about security information. If it's a landing page that you want people to be driven to, you can absolutely update that custom CTA to point to that landing page. The best practice, though, would be, of course, ensuring that there is a way for them to submit a lead on that page as well. You don't want them to go to a page that just kind of stops their journey, and then they wouldn't be able to submit it for a demo request or whatnot. Another way that you can do this, I mentioned it earlier, at my previous organization, we had a very nuanced solution that required a lot of integrations. And so what we did is we came out with a tech ebook that was really targeting the IT persona in our buying organization. And we included that as downloadable content as well, because you might be in the same kind of situation as us, where when you have a highly integrated solution, security becomes one of the key questions people have. And just making sure that that information was easily available did us a lot of favors in our profile. We have a point of clarification here, Emily, and so this one is going to be about the integration. So it's not where to show them where the integration section is, where they can integrate G2, but where they can update their integrations that they work with.
Thank you for that clarification. More than happy to reshare my screen here. So that is going to live under the product profile section on the left-hand side. And then right below G2 deals, we have the integration section here.
Beautiful. And you can see that blue, that exactly.
So, yep, add new integration here with this purple plus sign. And then again, you can approve or delete integrations as well for those that were submitted by reviews. So sometimes our partners change over time. I'm sure this is true for all products. So again, highly recommend giving this a quick look once a quarter, twice a year to ensure that the list is accurate.
Beautiful. All right, we have another question here that's been added for us. If we haven't updated our G2 profile in a while, what's the first thing we should focus on to drive more traffic?
This is a really good question. I would say it's twofold. I think one side of it is the content. Let's go through our videos, our screenshots, our downloadables, and ensure everything is up to date within the last 6 months, including our banner image. I think a banner image can think of your own shopping experience, right? When you see something that grabs your attention, you're more likely to stay on the page. So ensure that all of the branding materials are up to date. And then the second thing is going to be reviews. Our G2 profile, we now use AI to produce some really awesome summaries when it comes to sentiments that we're finding across your product's reviews, whether it's ease of implementation or just any recent reviews that tell a really fabulous story of what it's like to use your product. We want to ensure that we have referenceable stories of the last 6 months. So I would say also running a review campaign would go hand in hand with not only updating all of the content as well.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Again, my best rule is always to update your profile on a quarterly basis. And I think that banner is a great way to just make sure that you're always doing it. We used to update our banner every quarter with whatever our upcoming launch theme was going to be, so that it always felt markedly different, but also very connected, so that when our customers went, it was just another avenue for me as a product marketer at the time to showcase some of our newest features. And then to your point, Emily, ensuring that those newest features were the things that we were showing in our demos, in our videos, and in our screenshots, because oftentimes there's kind of the bread and butter of what we did, but all of our competitors always had the bread and butter in those things. So we try to differentiate by showing the newest and latest and greatest.
Absolutely. And one thing too, to add to that, Snow, as your product changes over time, whether features are being added or whether features are being sunsetted, I highly recommend ensuring that your feature section within your My.G2 is accurately filled out. And these features pull from your categorization. So for example, maybe there's new categories we need to be added to or categories we need to be removed from to ensure that that feature and functionality list is accurate. We want to be an accurate representation of your go-to-market strategy. And in addition to that, our review form will ask feature-specific questions that's derived from how you have that section filled out. So in other words, we're not going to ask your user to rate you on a feature that you don't offer. So we highly, it's very critical to ensure that that section is accurate and up to date. And as Stowe mentioned, I think a quarterly update there from product marketing is the best way to manage that.
Yes, absolutely. We have still more questions coming in, which I love to see it. Keep them coming. This question here, what is G2 doing to ensure that category pages are getting traffic? Since it's less in our control, how is AI changing search behaviors? So, Emily, I don't know if you want to speak to this. I can speak to this a little bit as well.
I'll let you start us off here, Snow.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always looking into ways that we can optimize the entire G2 experience so that it's not only being capitalized for traditional SEO, because even though traditional SEO is changing, it is still relevant today. So we're still making sure that we're popping up as high as we can in SEO results. And then we're also working with tools like Profound to track the utilization of G2 as a source for LLMs. And that's why we can confidently say we're a number one source there. Part of the way that that's happening is also through our syndication partners. By simply ensuring that G2 is showing up in more places, we increase how many pings, to oversimplify it, that we're getting on those LLMs and ensuring that we are staying as a top source. And we are committed to tracking this on more than a monthly basis. We have an entire team of people that's regularly tracking this to ensure that G2 is doing everything it can to continue to drive that traffic to category pages and profiles alike. Excellent. So we have a question about the algorithm here, and I know that this one is where a lot of times the answer is we don't have full overview. Emily, do you want to speak to this at all?
I can. So organic reviews are weighted slightly more. However, I don't want that to be a discouraging factor when it comes to driving reviews. All reviews on G2 are good, and this slight nuance is not going to make a difference in the quality of the review and how it overall boosts your category ranking. One thing that I'll mention here, though, is when reviews are gathered within your application, they do also to have a review bonus, if you will, or that slight weight increase. So just a shout out when we're thinking about review gen strategies, I highly recommend an always on method to ensure that we're capturing, targeting those users within your application directly and receiving that benefit when it comes to the algorithm. But again, the nuance is so small, I wouldn't fret, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember I would always track that when I was doing it, how many organic reviews, how many seller reviews. And to your point, just making sure that you have a consistent source of reviews is really the key thing. It's okay if they come from seller, if they're a partner reference, if it's organic, a review is still a review. And keep in mind too, especially when it comes to things like the LLM and generative AI search, the more you have, the better in general as well. So don't let the fact that one is weighted slightly less than the other stop you from having that full gambit of a review strategy. So speaking about generative AI, this is just another one here. So we mentioned generative AI is changing buyer discovery. How can we make sure that your G2 profile stays relevant as AI tools keep evolving? We've said it kind of a couple of times here, and I'm sure Emily can speak to this as well. It's really just about keeping it as up to date as possible, making sure you're doing those quarterly updates and filling everything out to its fullest extent. And that includes, as we described, pricing, even if the actual price is a contact us. Having a fully filled out profile is going to increase the weight that profile has in LLM search.
I'll even add here, let's make sure that you have a profile, period, point blank, right? We know, right? I think even starting there, just we know that G2 is the #1 source for these Gen AI platforms. And we are, just ensuring that you're in that conversation and getting started with that free profile is a great place to begin.
Beautiful. And I'm just making sure. Here we go. Here's one that's related to one that we were talking about earlier. So they focus on seller invites and they're trying to get more organic. Any tips on gaining more organic is welcome. I know I've got a few from my old days, Emily, but I'll hand it to you because I know you're probably more
Yeah.
in this.
No, I know. I would love to hear what your strategy was. That's so funny. But one tip is we have another CTA, if you will, that links directly to your review form and bypasses the login is at the end, which is just a better user experience overall. You can embed this CTA, and then the text would say, leave us a review or write a G2 review, embedding this into like a customer community portal or anything that maybe even on your login page is a really great way to get those organic reviews, right? You're not incentivizing these folks to leave a review. It's just a simple set it and forget it. And then ideally, folks that are ready to leave their feedback can organically click on that CTA. And again, Tristan, for you, the best part about it is once that CTA is embedded, you can kind of wipe your hands and it's done.
Yeah, that's very similar to what I used to do. And that was, again, I tied so much of my reviews to feature launches and releases. A lot of times I would have a QR code. I'd build up a QR code that just linked out to the review form to get started and use that in order to drive reviews. One thing that I haven't mentioned here, and this is not about organic, but is a good trick just from my old product marketing days. When people leave reviews, if they're non-anonymous, you know who they are. And especially if it's a middling review, if they've mentioned something in the past, and I've been tracking that. So I used to keep a spreadsheet of like the features and everything that were mentioned. Literally, if I knew a feature was being released that addressed their concern, I would reach back out to that person for a review update and say, hey, we've recently released this. You can do this. And I would even take some of those middling reviews and do almost like a reverse LinkedIn campaign where I would highlight the review that we got for a couple months ago and then be like, surprise, in our new release, we've actually addressed this. So to show that we are listening to our customers more than anything. All right, let's see what else we got going on in here that we haven't answered already.
I think we've covered it, Snow.
I think so. Well, and we're right at time too. Look at that. So it's wonderful to have spent this time with everyone today. Emily, any final words?
No, thank you all for your time. Again, any additional assistance you may need, reach out directly to your G2 CSM. But we hope that this was helpful. And again, we appreciate you all as well as the chat activity and everything. It was awesome engagement.
Wonderful. Thank you all for spending your time with us on this wonderful Wednesday. And we look forward to seeing you at the next G2U Edge session.